So if we use Leon Huford's categories, we can say that Adam Smith put forth two different types of division of labor implicitly. The first is the vertical, and the second is the horizontal. Let's take each one in turn. In the vertical division of labor, there's a little bit of specialization at work. What happens is that I'm individual A, you see the sequence up there. I'm individual A, and I do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, etc. Imagine shoemaking. I buy the leather, I cut the leather, I stitch it together, I dye the leather, make the shoe, put the shoe in the box and sell the shoe. I'm doing every single step of the production process. This is vertical division of labor. There's no specialization. There's a little bit of comparative advantage at work. There's not a whole lot of comparative advantage at work. What happens is that, so you're not using your comparative advantage. A negative aspect is that, again, there is differences in absolute and comparative advantages across the tasks. You are competent in a wide repertoire of skills. You're highly competent, you're highly skilled, you're not highly specialized. You must master many different steps of the production process. An advantage is that you work at your own pace. If there is a technological change that impacts more than one stage of production, because you're competent in every stage of production, you know how to adapt your stages of production to that technological change. And the output of your production is actually a unique good. Craft production, no, for example, plates, no two plates made in a craft manner are the same. They're unique. To this, we can juxtapose the horizontal division of labor. In the horizontal division of labor, you have comparative advantage at play. So, for example, if I'm really good in task 1 and I'm individual A, if the extent of the market grows, as Adam Smith would say, I would only do task 1. If you're good at task 2, you do task 2, etc., etc. So the production becomes sequential. My output feeds into your input. Actually, my output is your input. So there is sequential complementarity. What happens also is there is improvement in skill and dexterity. You focus your attention on only one task. That means you can learn that task really well and specialize in it. Okay? So there's learning by doing in a specific task. There's less sauntering. That means there's less waste of time between one task and the other. Because my output feeds in your input, I cannot waste time. I have to be precise because otherwise the entire chain of production stops. As I said, there is sequential complementarity. There's increased innovation in the sense that because you focus only on the specific task, you innovate on that specific task. You learn about it. You're assigned according to comparative advantage, and the paradigmatic example of this is the factory system, actually. And here is the technological problem, because we didn't have PDF here. Now, if we consider the voluntary mode of production, can everybody see this? No? Yes? Okay, I'll make it bigger. How do you make it bigger? Más grande. Yeah, this is a new one. I don't know how to do it. Can you do it? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Can you see it now? Better. So this is not the entire picture, no? But you see, the idea is the same as before. You have individual A, individual B, individual C, task 1, task 2, task 3, etc. But where's the unique part? Instead of being like before, where everybody, for example, in the vertical division of labor did every task and was not connected to every other production sequence. I did everything from A to Z. Here you have cases where you can have individual A doing task 1 and task 2, but at the same time, this is one process. At the same time, you have individual B doing task 1, individual C doing task 1, and also 3, for example. So there is a parallel division of labor, but also a redundant division of labor. There's redundancy at play, which Smith would have seen as inefficient, because you have multiple people working on the same task. There can be exceptions if you consider, for example, again, open source production. There can be cases where only one individual is assigned to a specific task. Because it's so delicate that we need a high-ranking individual in a voluntary organization to do only one task. You can have the Euro cases of that. There are the Euro cases. The example from before was Torvalds, who had the ultimate authority to judge which input could be inputted in his Linux program. Traditional economic theory, and also Adam Smith's theory, would say that this method of production is actually inefficient. It's inefficient because you have redundancy, you have waste. Okay? How do I go back to slide mode? This way. The little screen there.
Yeah.
So, but that is not really the case, because again, if you think in Hayekian terms, what's going on here? What's going on is that you're sharing the knowledge that you're working on. So if I input something, and you also input something, we're both working on the same task, but your input is a bit better than mine, I can learn from you, or you can learn from my mistake, vice versa. So whereas before in the horizontal division of labor, which was the most efficient type we can think of, so to speak, and all variations thereof, you have learning by doing at the individual level. Here you have social learning by doing, which offsets the redundancy costs. So the benefits from redundancy is actually the social learning by doing, which happens in open source software production, in voluntary production. So the self-selection means that there is spontaneous contributions, and this leads to a parallel and overlapping division of labor. There is a division of labor, yes, but not always necessary to be perfectly specialized in order to contribute. In a traditional division of labor system, I'm the accountant, I only do accounting. But if I'm good at operating, I don't know, using Excel, I cannot use Excel in the IT section of my company. Here, you can do that as well. You can be specialized in contributing for a specific part of the program, but if you see that you can contribute for a patch, you can also do that. So there is redundancy in input, as we just said, and this leads to the observations that the waste of time between one process and the other, which was important to understand the advantages of horizontal division of labor, is actually not a cost, okay, but is actually our main main reason of existence for the whole voluntary production. Everyone can work at his or her own pace. Complementarity is not sequential. My input does not go linearly into the next person. It can go vertically in the next person. It can go diagonally, because there is knowledge sharing. Again, the Hayekian idea of knowledge sharing doesn't go sequentially. It can go any direction. There's learning by doing, but the learning by doing is social, it's not individual. And as I mentioned, there's a hierarchy, so it's not strictly speaking a spontaneous order, in that if we think about it that way. This hierarchy manifests itself in urgent times when there is a specific need, that there's, for example, a deadline. They have to do dispatch or the entire program collapses. Then the hierarchy intervenes. It avoids lock-in, like it gets stuck in a particular inefficient trajectory. Because people are volunteers, they can lose track of priority. There's something that the entire program needs, but because they're volunteers, they're not going to do it. So direction intervenes in that case. So these are the main characteristics of voluntary production, which open source is a subset. As you see, it is, in my view, it is not strictly an order. It's more of an organization with more specific rule of conduct, which are, again, general, but more general than affirms, but they're still specific. But there's an important aspect that I didn't consider in this talk because it would have taken, a lot more time. Something else that's related to Hayek's theory of spontaneous order, which is modularity, which was developed by Simon, which is another theoretical aspect that we will need to look at to completely understand open source production. And that's it.
Creo que vamos por terminar el congreso. This is the end of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Thank you.